Hi, this is Gus Ofkowski for AP Gov 5-Minute Review, and in this segment we're going to be looking at elections. So the road to the national nomination for one's political party is you first have to go through with the caucus in Iowa, followed by a number of primaries in all other states. Now, prior to the McGovern-Fraser Commission, political parties actually nominated who they wanted to become the president. After the McGovern-Fraser Commission, it now goes to the people of the political party. Now, within the Democratic Party, they have what are known as super delegates, which are high-ranking members of the Democratic Party who automatically get a vote in the national nomination, and this gives greater control to the party structure. Now, as a result of more and more states pushing up their primaries and caucuses, this is starting a phenomenon known as front-loading. So more states are pushing it to the beginning of the primary season so that their state gets more attention. Now, with respect to the presidential system in which we elect them, we have what's called the Electoral College. This is an indirect election. You need 270 out of 535 electoral votes. Note that the popular vote does not count for presidential elections, unlike other countries. And the framers, of course, purposely did this to prevent the centralization of power in that the electors could overrule somebody who they thought would centralize too much power. The disadvantages, of course, is the popular vote does not always determine the winner. Ask Al Gore about that. Also, larger swing states receive more attention. Certainly, you're going to focus more attention on Ohio and Florida and Virginia as opposed to safer states. And of course, it has been known to discourage voter turnout as well as thwart third parties. But certainly on the flip side, you have the advantages of maintaining a federal structure, stability with respect to history and tradition, as well as preventing a victory based on urban areas. A candidate can't just focus on New York City and Los Angeles to get the vote. They have to focus on many more locations. Now we'll segue into House elections. Generally, they are less expensive and garner less media coverage. They are, of course, every 2 years. And they have what's known as the incumbent factor, which guarantees about a 90% success rate of getting reelected. Now, note that every state has at least one seat in the House of Representatives. Some have more, and this is based on the population, specifically based on the census conducted every 10 years. Also, with respect to House elections, you have what is known as gerrymandering, in which you have these oddly shaped districts carved out by the state legislatures. And sometimes you can have what's called malapportionment, where you have more voters in one district as opposed to another, so it's not equal. And ultimately, a very important Supreme Court case known as Baker v. Carr establishes the one-man, one-vote rule, which mandates that all districts have to be roughly equal in size. Okay, let's go to the Senate elections. Those, of course, are 6-year terms. They also have an incumbency factor, not as high as 90% in the House, but still relatively high. Note that the Senate, of course, represents the entire state as opposed to a district. They do, of course, draw out more visible challengers, and they tend to be a little bit more competitive compared to House elections. Now let's segue back to the incumbent advantages. Certainly, if you have a midterm election, it's going to draw out fewer voters. That can certainly help the incumbent because you're going to be reelected based on one's name, most likely. Other advantages include casework, so certainly if there's something that the senator did or the congressperson did for the state or district, that can gain you more notoriety. Also, the incumbents tend to have more name recognition, especially over weaker opponents. Campaign donations are typically higher for incumbents since they have such a high rate of winning, amongst other advantages that you see here. And then dealing with campaign finance, which is also covered in our interest group chapter. But nevertheless, FECA, the Federal Election Campaign Act, is going to create the FEC, which oversees elections. An important Supreme Court case that you should know that with respect to campaign finance is Buckley v. Ohio, which states based on the First Amendment, you can spend as much money on your campaign as you wish. Now, certainly political action committees have come about. They are, of course, the arms of labor unions, corporations, and individuals. And they are donating money that's not necessarily given to a candidate. It's going to be in the form of soft money so they can form a group and then run ads against a candidate who they don't like or for a candidate they like, but there's no coordination. Also, there's the BCRA, or the McCain-Feingold Act, which came about in 2002, which actually banned all soft money, but this is going to later be overturned with Citizens United versus the FEC, as well as SpeechNow.org versus the FEC, which is going to lead to super PACs, which can raise unlimited sums of money from corporations and unions for and against political candidates, and this has been a Supreme Court case that has allowed the floodgates of money into national elections.